Hello. Today we'll be talking about the 7 properties of life. These things are the 7 characteristics that something that is alive must have. Not one, not 2 at a time, but actually all 7 all together at some point in their life. The first property of life we're going to talk about is cellular organization. This means that things that are alive must be made up of small parts called cells. Now these things can be unicellular, where they just have one cell, or multicellular, like a human. We're made up of literally trillions of cells at a time. So, cellular organization is an extremely important property of life. Something that is alive must be organized into cells. The second property of life is reproduction. Okay? Reproduction. Something must have the ability to produce copies of itself. So, this can be either asexual or sexual. Asexual is when an organism produces an exact copy of itself. So, let's think maybe a starfish or a sea anemone. They might have cells growing off the side of their body. If those cells ever are cut off and begin to continue growing next to them, those cells are going to be an exact copy of that first starfish. Now, let's think sexual reproduction. That's when 2 parents combine their DNA to create a genetic combination. Alright? So I am not exactly like my mom, nor am I exactly like my dad. Instead, I'm a mix of their DNA. The third property of life is metabolism. This is probably going to be the one that might confuse you the most. Not because it's hard, but because it has kind of a funny name. Metabolism is the chemical processes in us that produce the energy that we need to stay alive. Here's my cat. He has a metabolism. He has to eat. Just like us, we have to ingest some sort of food to create energy for our bodies so that we can continue living. Let's think. What about a car? It needs gas so it can continue running, right? But the thing is, that car does not produce that gas or think, I need gas, and go out and find it on its own. Instead, we, as drivers, have to do that. So therefore, a car doesn't have a metabolism on its own. Number 4 is homeostasis. This is the ability to maintain a stable internal environment. Think about a temperature. In our bodies, we always want to keep 98.6 degrees across the board. If our temperature gets too high, that means we have a fever. If it gets too low, we're also probably a little bit sick. So we want to keep homeostasis, a stable internal environment where we're at a healthy temperature. Same thing with food, okay? Our metabolism tells us that if we're hungry, we're out of homeostasis. We don't have enough energy. Hunger is a sign of being out of homeostasis. If we feel too full, that's also a sign of being out of homeostasis. It's a sign that we ate too much. And next time, maybe we shouldn't overdo it like that. 5th is heredity. Something that is alive must have the ability to pass on their genes. And their genes must be in the form of some sort of genetic code or DNA. These are the instructions that make that organism be exactly that organism. There can't be any question on whether this human is a cat, or this cat is an orange, or this orange is a starfish, okay? All those things have to have their own separate genetic code. The 6th property of life is responsiveness. Something that is alive must be able to respond to its environment. It must be able to react to stimuli. Examples of stimuli are touch, light, heat or cold, sound. So let's think about a plant. If we put a light in the corner of a room, that plant is actually going to grow towards that light. It's able to respond. Therefore, we can check off a plant as having this property of life. My cat, if I go and I tweet a whistle, he's going to hear me, and he's going to probably make some sort of strange sound or react in a weird way. He is able to respond. Therefore, he has this property of life. The final property of life is being able to grow and develop. This one is kind of a little tricky, okay? As something grows or gets older, it must be able to become larger and more complex. Now, I haven't grown or gotten any taller since I was in the 5th grade. But I grew from when I was born, until then, and my body has also had quite a few changes in that time period. So, growth and development. Something must be able to get bigger, but also become more complex as their life goes on. Let's think about an orange seed. An orange seed starts off being pretty simple. It grows into maybe an orange tree. And that orange tree gets even more complicated whenever it starts to produce its own fruits that have their own seeds. So, it grows and develops over time. Now, like I said in the beginning, we can't just look at an organism and say, hey, it has one or two of these properties, I guess it's alive. Something must have all 7 properties of life at some point in their life to be considered alive.